Hello, House District 60. Mark Owens coming to you from Salem. It is Friday after the first week of session. Been quite a few rambunctious days. I'll first just start to give you a little bit of idea on some of the process of how short session works. As you guys know, it's every other year. It's in the even year. It's when we don't have to pass a budget. The short session was sold to our communities that we would come into this building, do some technical fixes, finish some things that were undone from the long session, and reconcile the budget if need be. And in fact, we're attempting to do far, far more than that, which I don't think is appropriate. But even as we saw this time in Ag, Water, Natural Resource, and Land Use Committee that I co-chair, is a tough, tough process. Even when legislators are limited to 2 bills each, there's still too many bills to try to process in 35 days. In fact, you have 4 to 5 committee hearings to get them out of the first chamber, to get them out of the House, or to get them out of the Senate. And we've been trying to do, 3 bills a day in public hearings. You only have an hour and a half in a public hearing. Some of our bills have 18, 30, 60 people signed up to testify. We're not given enough time, or we don't provide enough time to have meaningful conversations with the public. We end up having to limit public testimony to 1.5 minutes. I've seen public testimony limited to 1 minute. It's not right. We are frustrating Oregonians, even if we get the policy right, because we're not allowing their voices to be heard. Representative Helm and I were talking about this. Fundamentally, we got to change the structure a little bit. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. It might play out in, House Bill 4002, which I'm a chief sponsor of. It's a bipartisan, bicameral bill in order to talk about bill limits. Bill limits can be a touchy subject, but we introduced too many bills, especially in the long session. I'll keep you informed of that. We had a work group meeting Thursday evening yesterday to start talking about what are those numbers, how do we get those numbers correct for the long session in 27. And I articulated the biggest mistake we can make is not trying to do something in 27 on bill limits. Maybe we get it right, maybe we get it wrong, but we have to start limiting the amount of bills that go through this building so we can actually interact and engage with the public in a better way. The 2 bills that I've had this session are House Bill 4049. It is specifically in the Harney Basin and voluntary agreements. As most of you or some of you are aware, on December 11th, the Oregon Water Resource Commission made a determination and passed a set of rules that declared the Harney Basin a critical groundwater designation, which now gives them the authority to start putting out regulatory orders to cancel water rights to try to maintain reasonable stability. Or, as what the rule said, reach stability. The only other alternative to that is to allow groundwater users from the same groundwater reservoir to enter a volunteer agreement with the Commission. It was established in the 1955 Groundwater Act to allow those actions to occur. We wouldn't have to have a bill, except the Oregon Water Resource Department came out with a memo and said, these are the requirements that have to be in a volunteer agreement, and these are the things that you'll have to mirror of the rules that they put out there. Basically, it's a replication of the rules. It doesn't give the flexibility enough for the groundwater users to work with the Oregon Water Resource Commission to accept a goal in the future, reduce the water, and use that water to the best economic, the best ecological, and the best social uses. So we have to provide some clarity because the department put out a memo. A little frustrating, the department in their written testimony said they were neutral, but said the reason they put out the memo was listening to the community members. I was actively engaged in that. And everybody, I believe, that testified on support of the bill was actively engaged in that process. And what they put out in that memo was not what the community wants. So we had a public hearing for 4049. Went well. I think those in the community that testified came down. You guys did a wonderful job. It's up for a work session next week. I expect it to go through. Some of our environmental groups like Water Watch are opposing it. Going to have to keep working with some of my Democratic colleagues to counterbalance some of Water Watch's points, because I don't think they are, truly valid on some of the concerns they bring forward. The other bill is House Bill 4105, Sustainable Harvest Levels on State Forest Lands. Is a repeat from House Bill 3103 last year that made it out of committee unanimously. It instructs Oregon Department of Forestry to put out how much timber they are going to put up for sale on state forest lands and meet those goals. If they don't put up that volume of timber for sale, they have to do it, make up for it in the next year, or they can, be litigated. It's a good governance bill. They're already supposed to do this in rule. We just want to codify it so our counties can plan, our timber industry can plan, our communities can plan, so we understand what is coming forward. Look forward to that public hearing. Still trying to work with the Department of Justice, because last year when it made it out of policy committee unanimously, it went to Ways and Means. They slapped a $10 million fiscal on it because the potential for judicial conflict. And I think it was an erroneous Ways and Means ask. So we're still working through that. One of the other more lively bills that came through Ag and everything else committee was House Bill 4153. Another bill that I'm signed on. Chief sponsor is Rep. Vicki Breeze Iverson, and it's the farm stand or farm store bill. The conversations in Oregon is, where is it applicable? Where can you put a farm stand in? If you put a farm stand in, can you only sell products that are raised on your farm, your neighboring farm? Can you, if you have a cattle operation, can you sell a hamburger with cheese if the cheese isn't with by a neighboring farm? It's a very, very convoluted conversation. But what we know is our farmers need help. The average farm the last several years in Oregon is in a negative cash flow situation. We got to figure out how to have them be able to augment their income where applicable to keep our farmers in business. Are we going to get this policy 100% correct? No, we're not. But we got to try it. There was some compelling testimony on 4153, from both sides. So there's probably still a little work to be done, and hopefully that can get done in the short session to move this bill forward. The other big conversation that's starting to percolate up a little bit is the budget conversation. So the last budget forecast just came out Tuesday, or it came out Wednesday, I think. So just 2 days ago. And it's said that, revenue is now expected to be up a couple $100 million more. So we currently have a balanced budget, and we currently have probably enough to have financial responsibility for reserve. But we don't currently have enough to fund some of the programs that everybody wants to fund this building. We don't currently have enough funding for some of my colleagues in this building to make up for what they thought was the HR1 or the Big Beautiful Bill on some other benefits. So there's still going to be some tough budget conversations to come through, and it's all going to be on priorities. My priorities in the budget is to make sure that, we can bring the tax dollars back that are paid in Eastern Oregon back into Eastern Oregon, hopefully more. I'll keep you informed of the budget conversations as they move forward. So there's a lot of political charged bills this session. More politically charged bills in any session that I've seen since 2020. You've had hearings just this week on, Measure 114, Second Amendment bills that, to me is an end run about the judicial process that's still going through there, codifying Measure 14. You have bills on abortion and gender affirming care. I mean, we have the most liberal policies on abortion and gender affirming care than probably any other state in the nation. Yet we feel obligated, or some of my friends feel obligated, to keep doubling down on that. Some tough social issues. You have some immigration bills that are coming forward that, might be in conflict with the federal supremacy in the Constitution. But the biggest one, I think, is Senate Bill 1599. So the ongoing transportation package. 2025, we did not pass a transportation package out of the long session, even though it was a priority. The governor called us in special session, passed a partisan bill in special session that did far, far more than just maintain the core functions of ODOT and keep ODOT employees providing safe and effective roads. And then Oregonians spoke. In fact, over 250,000 Oregonians spoke and said, no, enough is enough. We don't support this package. We want to have a vote on this package, and we want that vote to occur in November 2026 in the general election. That's what over 250,000 Oregonians signed, saying, I want this ballot, this measure, referred to the November ballot. Secretary of State then verified those signatures and said, yes, that's what will occur. Now, politically self-serving, the governor's race is in November. I don't believe our governor wants this on the same ballot as the general election. I don't think some of my Democrat friends want this on a ballot when their name is on it. Oregonians said they want that. Now they put in a bill that actually, in my opinion, goes probably against the authority they have. These are in such a close time frame because they now want to refer to the May election that they're actually even changing some of the deadlines. They formed a special committee with 4 Democrats, 2 Republicans to evaluate this, write the ballot title, rewrite everything. They instruct the Supreme Court that they have to finish challenges by March 14th. They're changing dates in election law in order to keep this potentially coming from the November ballot. That's Senate Bill 1599. We'll get you more details as it comes out. I believe we're actually going to hold this newsletter off till Saturday or Sunday because we believe that Senate Bill 1599 will be scheduled for Monday in Senate rules, and we can help you get set up to testify on that. Everybody have a good weekend. I'm going to head home for a day or two, then be back in Salem. Talk to you next week. Thank you.